Hey guys, it's Delora Dabbles here, and today I have some spinning tips on filling your bobbin. And I don't want to say properly because that assumes that you haven't been doing it right or that there's only one proper way to do it. But this is the way that I spin bobbins, and this is the way that to me works best and makes the most sense, and everything that I've read in books, because I'm self-taught, but I've read a lot of books on the subject. Anyway, I have a bit of a pet peeve whenever it comes to winding your bobbin on, and that is keeping your wind on consistent. So my first pass, completely consistent. I switched hooks. There were no sections, right, where I got a big hump of yarn. If I did, then I would unwind it, switch hooks, and then rewind it. Because those big humps, and I've been seeing them all over Instagram, they're a little bit of a pet peeve. And it's not a pet peeve that throws me into a rage. It's just a pet peeve that is vaguely annoying. And I'm just like, and then I move on. I don't actually get angry about it, but my problem with those is that, one, you're packing your yarn very unevenly across. Those lead to problems later when you go to unwind, and your bobbin will snag, and you might lose your thread in the midst of the, in between the sections. You'll lose your yarn in between the sections. Because for one, your layers are either too thick, or you have a thick section, a thin section, a thick section, a thin section. The other thing is, other than causing problems later, is that you won't be able to pack on as much yarn if you're not packing it on consistently, which means that your 4-ounce bobbin may only hold 2 or 3 ounces. And you're like, but this is supposed to be a 4-ounce bobbin, blah, blah, blah. They lied to me. No, either your tensioning is off, or you're winding your bobbin unevenly, or both. So many people have their tension set too loose. You want your wheel to gently pull the yarn out of your fingers. You don't want your wheel to yank the yarn out of your hand. Your tension is way too high if that's happening. But you do want the wheel to be gently pulling the yarn out of your hands, very gently, right? As if your wheel was me doing this to your yarn. This is what you want to feel when you're spinning. You want that tight-ish tension where it's tight enough to wind on and pack properly, but not so tight that it's ripping out of your hand. When you keep each layer, so this is the middle of a project. I took it off the bobbin just to show you guys. Even left my little fluffy end here, so that's why there's that ball of fluff there. This was my first pass, so this bit of white here is my leader yarn. And so this was the size of my first pass, and this is the size of my second pass. You can see that each pass is about this big, kind of around that big. You want to keep each layer a reasonable amount. Even if you pack your bobbins consistently, if you have a layer that's like this thick or even just this thick, what you're doing is you are also causing a tensioning problem that will cause you to wind your bobbin unevenly, because, as I'm sure if you've done, a lot of spinning projects, you'll notice that as the project goes on and as you fill your bobbin more and more, you have to increase your tension as you go filling up your bobbin. That's because this circumference here changes. So whenever I went from this circumference here to this circumference here, I had to adjust my tension ever so slightly, because you're now winding onto a different circumference of this. And I don't know the mathematics of all of this, but you will need to wind on more tightly as you change your circumference and you fill this out and your circumference gets greater and greater. Your tension also has to become greater and greater, just in very small increments. Remember, tension is a very light touch. I do have a Scotch tension wheel, so that's mainly what I'm referring to. Irish tension and double drive might be a bit different. I don't know because I haven't worked with those kinds of wheels. So just a heads up, I have a Scotch tension spinning wheel. So that is the long story of why you need to pack your bobbins as evenly and pull your layers in as, you know, reasonably small as possible. Now, of course, if you have a nifty little woolly winder, then you don't have to worry about that at all because it just does it for you. But for people like me, we gotta really pay attention. And even I make mistakes. I don't always switch hooks at just the right time. Sometimes I zone out and I don't realize it. What I will do is I will unwind my bobbin and I will put it, just like when I'm spinning, I will put it here in between these fingers, right? Like that. And I will completely unwind that bobbin. Sometimes I will have several yards of yarn on my fingers because I didn't switch the hooks like I was supposed to. And then I will switch the hooks and wind it on properly. And I take the time to do that because I want to pack my bobbin and I want to get the most yarn that I can on each bobbin. And I want to make sure that whenever I go to ply this later or skein it later, that it's not going to snag and possibly break and cause a huge headache later. Because when you switch hooks often, it's very firm. Notice how I'm pressing on this and it's not, I'm even like trying to shift the yarn with my fingers and it's not really quite shifting. I got some waves here from having done that, but it's not like my fingers sink into my bobbin. If you can pinch the yarn on your bobbin and your fingers sink into it, either your layers are too big and your tensioning is off, or both. You are not going to be able to pack nearly as much on. Whenever I first started spinning, I had that problem. I would be like, there's no way this is a 4-ounce bobbin. This is only 2 ounces of yarn and it's completely full. But I would touch it and my fingers would sink into it. That's not how your bobbin is supposed to be filled. Your bobbin is supposed to be very tightly filled. So, pet peeve, that's why. And I do hear about people whose yarns get stuck here in between the sections where you switch hooks. And then the yarn breaks and you have to try to dig it out. I've heard people and seen posts online of, oh yeah, and I had to dig the yarn out. And I'm like, that's never happened to me. What are you doing? How did you do that? How did you make that happen? So, yes, that's how you fill a bobbin properly. I hope that this video made sense and that you were able to follow the whys and hows of this, and that hopefully you will, put this into good practice. And until next time, happy dabbling and bye-bye.